Hi, I'm Kimberly. And yes, I do have the same shirt on as a couple other videos because I'm batching. Shh, those are the secrets of a successful YouTube schedule. So today, I want to talk about how life after 50 is your best chapter. Stick around. So I think I mentioned in a previous video that my father passed away at 50. And so I always thought 50 was really old until I got there. And then I was like, whoa, slow down, Nellie. This ain't so old. This ain't so old at all. I feel like I'm just getting started. And I feel like that's so true. I feel like there's like trimesters in life, like a pregnancy. You have your first trimester, and that's when you're a kid and you're an idiot and you're just kind of growing up and you're going through the puberties and you're going through the schools and you're doing all the things. Then you have your second trimester, and that's like your 25 to 50. You know, let's say the first 25 and 25 to 50. And that's when you're raising a family, you're building a career, you're buying the house, you've got the car payments, you're doing all the things, right? And then you come into the third trimester. And it's the best, baby. It's the best. And we're going to talk about why. Now, first, a little bit about me. I have reinvented myself each trimester. So my first trimester, I was this rock and roll, smoking the weed, playing the drums, staying out all night, doing the things. My mom didn't know, so don't tell her. But I had this whole life, right? Then I got married, and my second trimester, I ran a daycare center. I was a mom. I was super involved in the church. I was just doing all the things, right? And then towards the end of the second trimester, I reinvented myself again in my 40s. Went through a divorce, but still kind of dealing with the kids, and they were just graduating high school and things. Closed down the daycare, started a new business, that kind of thing. And then when I hit in my 50s, my third trimester, where I'm semi-retired, I'm so much more relaxed. I'm starting to find joy in life I'm starting to drive the car instead of riding in the car. Does that make sense? I feel like through your second trimester, when you're, building the family and the business and the houses and the cars, you're just you're on the ride, and it goes by so fast, and you're just in the back seat and your hair's blowing back and you're on the ride. And now in my third trimester, in my 50s, I'm driving. I'm making the choices. I'm not necessarily being pushed this way or that way. I'm making those choices for my life, and it's so much better. Really in that groove. I don't care what people think. I don't care what people think anymore. I remember a day when I would never leave the house unless my hair and makeup were done. I was halfway put together, to go to the store. Now, I got my sweats on, my hair pulled back. I'm lucky if I wash my face, and I'll run to the grocery store, and I don't care who I run into. It's such a freedom to just be yourself. And yes, I do like to look nice, but it's okay if I don't. If I just need to run an errand or something, I'm not going to work myself up about it. I literally was one of those people back in my early, my 30s, early 40s, where I would put my makeup on to go to the gym. Yeah, ain't a chance now that would happen, but it's because I'm free now. I don't care what people think. I'm not out to hurt anybody's feelings or beyond or anything like that. I mean, I care what people think that way, but I don't care what people think of me. I'm just me, and you either love me or you hate me. It doesn't matter, because I love myself. Okay, so that's one of the big things I've noticed. And I think that goes along with number 2. I know who I am now. When the first trimester, when I was a kid and I was going through high school and all the things, I had no idea who I was. I was trying to figure that out, and I was, being swayed like a reed in the wind. And I was a strong person, don't get me wrong. I made choices, but You don't know who you are. And then through your second trimester, when you're growing the family and the house and the cars and the job, you're becoming what other people need you to be. You're becoming a mother because, they need you to be a mother. You're becoming more Christian because you're in the church or whatever. You're becoming, whoever your people in your business require of you or your husband requires of you. You're just wearing so many hats that you don't even know who you are. And in fact, my ex-husband, bless his heart, we're still friends, but my ex-husband used to tell me that you reinvent yourself all the time. It wasn't I was reinventing, I was a chameleon. I was trying to fit into all these hats, which probably led to the anxiety issues I have now. No, just kidding. The social anxiety that keeps me locked in my RV. No, honestly, you're trying to be everything for everybody else, and it's exhausting. And then after that's all over and you move into that third trimester after 50, 55, you start like, hey, no, this is who I am. These are the people I want in my life. This is what I want to do. I'm not doing what I don't want to do anymore. This is who I am. Take it or leave it. And it's refreshing. And it really clears up your mind a lot. Once you hit your third trimester, after 50, you find that you have freedoms that you never had before. Now, me, especially because I'm single, I have a lot of freedom, and it'll be hard for me to ever give that up. If I do want to sit and rot in my recliner for the weekend and binge watch movies because it's raining outside, I can do that and no one's going to question it. If I want to have breakfast for dinner, I can, and no one's going to question it. If I want to take a trip, I don't have to coordinate with somebody else. No one's going to question it. And if you're still married or in a relationship, you still have freedom. You don't have the kids to deal with so much. You don't have quite as many especially if you're retired, you don't have the job responsibilities that you had before. There's just a freedom that comes in this age range that you've never experienced before. Most of us now have the finances to be able to do a little more. Although I do have another video where I talk about finding those freedoms and joys when you don't have the finances. It's just a freedom that I've never experienced before. And at first I didn't know what to do with it. When I first started experiencing the freedom, I was bouncing around like a ping pong. Oh, what's the game? Pinball. I want to say ping pong. Pinball machine ball, just bouncing around. And I remember when I first got divorced, I was about 43. I had a remote job, so I could work from anywhere at the time. And I moved 5 times in 6 months because I'd never had that freedom. I had never had those choices being completely my own. And I stayed in Washington, but I moved all over the place. I moved, from Gig Harbor to Kirkland to Bellevue to Puyallup to, all over the place I moved and ended up in downtown Seattle and then back to Gig Harbor again when it all ended. But it was because I'd never had that freedom and I didn't know what to do with it. It was exhilarating. And I finally slowed down and figured out who I was and ended up, back in Gig Harbor because this is where my family is. This is where my grandkids are. This is where I really wanted to be. But I didn't even know that because I had never been able to make that choice myself. So the freedom is huge. And now that I've had it a little while, I'm able to kind of temper that a little bit to not go so crazy. And don't think, and this is kind of my final thought, that just because you're over 50 or you're retired, that you're not just getting started. Colonel Sanders didn't come up with the whole KFC thing till he was 65. Vera Wang didn't create her first fashion masterpiece until she was over 40. There's a lot of people out there that didn't really find themselves and their calling until after they got through that second semester, that 30s and 40s. This is your time. I've mentioned before, there has never been a better time in our lifetime where you can learn anything you want to learn for free, pretty much. YouTube is a university. I mean, you can learn anything you want. You can get inspired. You can learn a trade. There's so many things. If you're not done, there is so much you can start even now. can start a YouTube channel. What the heck? I do this because I enjoy the creativity of it and I enjoy sharing my thoughts with a captive audience that isn't going to interrupt me. You're like, click. That's okay. I enjoyed having you here while you were here. Bye. But no, I've reinvented myself, let's see, 3 times for sure, career-wise. Like I said, I started out with my daycare center, and it started out as an in-home center, with 1 or 2 kids so that I could stay home with my babies. Next thing I know, I had 65 kids and 13 employees. And then my kids got too old for that, and then the internet came along. I taught myself web design. I started doing internet marketing and web design and, that kind of stuff. And then I started an internet company, which is still out there today. And then my 3rd business, my daughter came to me one day, and this was after I was like, this was mid-40s. She had graduated high school and she was going to hair school, and she says, Mom, why don't you go to hair school too, and then we can open a salon together. I had never thought of that in a million years, but I love building business, so I'm like, let's do it. So I went to hair school, which took 13 months out of my life while I was still doing the online thing, and opened a salon with her, and we ran that for 8 years. The pandemic shut it down, but we ran that for 8 years, and it was a blast. Now I just do hair 3 days a week and another little salon, and semi-retired. But that doesn't mean I'm done. I might still come up with something new. I don't know. I don't think I'm the type that will ever just completely retire, mostly because I don't have any retirement. But second, I don't have any hobbies at this point that would keep me busy enough. I need to stay busy, or I will, melt into this chair, and I don't want that to happen either. So I'll stay busy. But unless you've got big plans for retirement, you don't have to be done. But you can reinvent. You can come up with something new, something less strenuous, something more fun. Even if it's selling ice cream bars to the kids in the neighborhood. I don't know. I'm just always coming up with ideas. You know what I think? Now I'm really getting off topic, but that's why you're here, right? Because I ramble. I think someday my next thing, I love kids, but I don't like parents. But I think maybe a little doggy bed and breakfast where I just stake a couple of dogs into the house on the weekends or something for a little extra money, and something like that. Maybe just keep doing hair for a day or 2 a week. Just little things like that where I'm not committed to any one thing too much, but just enough to keep me busy, keep my mind sharp. So there's lots of things. You'll come up with something if you need to. Okay, done with that ramble. Okay, so I wrote this part down because I didn't want to forget it. So here's the truth. Life after 50 isn't about slowing down. It's about leveling up. It's about embracing joy, which we've talked about in other videos, ditching the rules because now you're free, and writing your boldest, happiest, most unapologetic chapter ever. Because the 3rd trimester is the best. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time.